I want you to see how we take a picture or an image off of a digital camera and put it into play in some project. I've got a series of pictures that I took with a digital camera at the Getty Museum in Los Angeles. And I want to use one of them for a cover for a national magazine, featuring the Getty, featuring the inside, the outside, the gardens, the buildings, a big photo spread. But I picked this picture here as the image I want to use on the cover. So I'm in the iPhoto section of my computer, coming out of a Macintosh, and I've sorted these pictures and I've seen them now as thumbnails, and so I want to process this picture. So it has its own image number given it by the camera. I select that picture and it has its gold frame around it. I mean, that's what I'm going to deal with. I'm going to go to File and I'm going to say Export. And that picture then is going to go Export, File Export is where I'm going to. And I'm going to say Export. It's going to give me another thing here. It says there's a number it's giving me, and it's going to go to the desktop. I can change that number and name now. I'll just put Getty Outside, just for my own recognition, and I hit OK. Now it's exporting, and actually here it is showing up right here on my hard drive as the Getty Outside. Now I'm going to take that image, it's a JPEG image, and I'm going to drag it down to Photoshop. Photoshop is already open, and it will open it in Photoshop, and it's in its own page or its own setup here, and I'm going to set that here so I can see it. And there's my image, but I have to process that now to get it ready for what I'm dealing with. Now I'm going to go to Photoshop and say hide others, and so all that stuff in the background is going to go, and I'm going to see through to my desktop image. And I can also open this little wider here to get it filling the, so I don't see so much of the desktop. Now I already have opened up my blank sunset page. This is where I'm going to put this picture, but I've got to process the picture now, and they're both sitting up here across the bar. They're open, but I can see one of them at a time. All right, this picture I have to process now. Continue. I go to image and I say image size, and if I was going into the magazine I'd probably make it a little bigger, but just to be consistent I'm going to stay with my rule of 7. I'm going to go to 7. The height now is 7, and the resolution I'm going to take that to 400. And when I say OK to that, now you see it changes around a little bit to realign its resolution from 180 to 400 and get the size situated. And it's my picture here is background still. I'm going to click on that and say let's change that to Getty, just so I know where I am. And remember, I've now changed it to 7 by whatever the 4 was, and it's 400 dpi. I can still work this picture. For example, up here, the leaves showing off this tree there, I might not want those in there, so I can take my cloning tool and just take, I'll get a pretty big brush here, and I'll just take the clone area from this part of the blue sky and then come across and use layer for layer, blue for blue, and go to get a little more blue to take that out, so that that's opened up. And so that's the image I want. I'm going to save, it's a JPEG though, but I'm going to say File, Save As, and it's the Getty Outside. Now it changed itself to Photoshop because I worked it in Photoshop by doing that cloning business over the leaves. But if I didn't, I'd come down here and I'd see JPEG there, and then I would come and ask for not JPEG but the Photoshop, and that would be Photoshop here. And now when I save this to the desktop, it will be in the right format, the right way that I've worked this picture through, and I hit save and I OK all the changes, and it's going to sit on my back here on my desktop. If I move this, you'll see it. See, here's my new picture. It's a Photoshop picture, and I've worked it out a little bit there, so that's sitting there waiting for me to store it later on. Now to get this into my magazine cover, I come over here and I say, okay, I've got the show transform controls on, the bounding box is there. I'm going to Command A means I've just uh, selected the entire picture. And then Command C is that I've put it on the clipboard to copy it. I'm coming up here to sunset blank and go back there. Now, you see here's sunset against the brown, and here's the magazine of the Western Living against the brown, or black, and there's the black background. Above the black background, I'm going to select that so it's blue, and when I hit the new button, it puts a new layer right above the active one, and to that layer, and if I want to do it right now, I can just call it Getty. I'm going to now place or paste that picture in. Command V as in Victor, and that picture comes in and it sits there, and you can see through it. You can see around it. It's not as big as it should be yet. So now I'm going to take this and put this down in the corner. You could go to the top or the corner, bottom, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to open this up. Shift key and grab my diagonal thing and roll it up here. Now you can see that it's not wide enough yet. So I'm going to sacrifice not the blue sky. I'm going to click on this and it's going to say you will apply that. Yes, I'm going to apply that. But I'm going to make my navigator a little smaller, and I'm going to grab this corner down here and I'm going to sacrifice some of this green to keep some of the sky. And again, go to the corner here and shift your arrow so it's a diagonal. Hold the shift key down so it enlarges proportionately, and then bring that to the width of my magazine format. And then I come back here to the black arrow and say apply that, and there I have my picture now. It's a little bit bigger than I've lost some grass down in here, some greenery, but that's going to work for me. I can still, get a hold of the picture and move it up a little bit if I want to gain some green back. I'm not going to put my building up to the top so it's going out. I want some blue sky above the building, and so I set that way. Now I have the deal about sunset. It's a little bit of a hard to read against the yellow against the white. So I'll go to my sunset, and I'm going to pick a color with my eyedropper. I'm going to pick this green right back here, the grass. See, that's a color that's pretty much throughout the place there. I'm just going to pick on that. And I notice over here in where that orange is, when I select that green, that green shows up there. Now, is it going to be dark enough to see what's going on up here and be separate from the white and the mediums and the blue sky? Let's see. I'm going to go up here, and remember I'm on the sunset layer now. I'll take my magic wand tool and click on the S, and see it's got all the S. Now I could hold the shift key down and click on each one of the other letters on this layer, or I could go to select and say similar, and see it picks up all the other guys and include the negatives and the positive. And now that green is sitting there, so I'll just hit option, because it's selected, option delete, puts the foreground color in, and you see the green there. That isn't quite dark, separating enough. So there's some red down in here. What if I went and got some of these red flowers? Now they're a cool red, but let me check and see what I get. They're a little bit too, it's a little too dark. I think I want to find a color. I'm going to come over here and just pick a color down in the warmer reds. A red, orange is going to work for me probably here. And there it is. It's still clicking on the answer, still marching. So now I'll try it again. Option delete puts the foreground color in. Fine. That color isn't quite the red or the cool red of these flowers, but it fits with all the other things. There's some red, orange in the leaves over here, so that's going to work. Now, I hit Command D, and the sunset is going to read Magazine of Western Living up there. Let's go look at that and say, what's that going to be? Is it going to be the red or a darker, maybe a brown? So there'll be a little harder to pick up. Let's see if I can pick it up with my magic wand. I'm just going to click on, one of those letters. They're not very big. I'll go with the M. Let's see if I got it. Nah, not so much. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on all the negative space, and then I'm going to say select similar, and I get all the other negative space inside, and then I'm going to go back to select and say inverse, and that should give me just those letters. Now I've got orange here. I'm going to click on the orange, and I'm going to drop down in the color picker to a little darker brown and select that, and then that's the foreground color. So option delete key puts the foreground colors in, and let's hit Command D to take away the marching ants. And for now, I'm going to turn off my show transform control so I can see what I'm looking at. That stands up pretty good. The Magazine of Western Living, Sunset. That brown matches some of the brown in the gardening features down here. So I've got my picture in and processed. It's now a layer, and it's large enough to fit the bounds of the magazine format. I've got the resolution up pretty high, the 400 dpi. Now it probably printed about 200 to 300 dpi, somewhere there, but it give the printer something to work with a high resolution. And so now my Getty image coming off my digital camera through iPhoto or any other processing software you have, and you open up that as a JPEG and then transfer it to a Photoshop document and then put it in its layer and deal with the masthead and the letterhead and everything else that's going with that, and you're home free. If Sunset Magazine would allow you, I might go to that Sunset and come down here to the filters and put in let's look at a outer glow. And the outer glow around Sunset is to help it stand out a little bit more. Now it comes open on this yellow, which isn't all that bad. Let's just take the yellow, open the screen here. I'm going to take that up to normal and let the spread happen just a little bit and size. And let's say that's going to work for me. Maybe, let's see the yellow against the light brick doesn't work so much. Let's take that color and consider it back into the brown area and let that work for us. Now I'm going to open the size just a little bit so that it's a little fuzzier, spread a little bit more, and I can even take the opacity down so it's not quite as obvious, and maybe change that to it's not so quite a dark brown. Let's go back up into the oranges, maybe a little more contrast, something like that. And then, let's say I'm all right with that, and I okay that, and now I have my sunset happening with a little bit of an edge to it so that you can see the difference. If you don't like that, just go to the outer glow effect here and turn it off, and you're back to where we started. But this gets your picture into the format, the size, the position, the horizontal or vertical, whatever you're working with, to take its place on this magazine cover. And that's how to process then a photograph through your digital camera that you may have taken or you download from some photographer or buy it from some service to get this work into your Photoshop project.